What's up everyone, Omid from CodeLab here, and welcome back to the second video in our series on HTML and CSS. And this one we'll be discussing the many different tags within HTML and what some of the big ones mean. So again, in the last video we did sort of introduce the concept that we do have this idea of an HTML element, and that there are some that are self-closing tags and others, for the most part, which typically require them to be closed by you. So like we have this body tag right here, again, whatever that means, where it opens up and then we have a version of it that closes itself with this slash right here. So an HTML element can typically have two types of content inside of it. One, like this little p tag right here, it can just say hello world. The other kind, it can actually contain other HTML elements inside of it. So there is this concept of sort of nesting and building downwards in HTML. So like this body tag, its only contents is this p tag. But this p tag, its only contents is text. And you can actually combine them. You could have just like some plain text alongside with like some other regular HTML elements. You can combine them both. Now let's quickly walk through what some of these big ones mean. So the first thing right up here obviously is HTML. And this is just kind of basically like the topmost level, like everything inside of me is HTML. Pretty basic and straightforward. Now this head tag right here, this is one that you won't typically be doing a lot of work in, because this tag demarks the section that is primarily for metadata. So metadata is essentially data that describes other data. So this is where information like about your website goes. So stuff like the title for your page. If you need to do any like search engine optimization, SEO, to like make your page show up better on Google, any other information related to what your website is about, and also for loading in your CSS and JavaScript code. More on that in future videos. So that's what that does. Body is where the actual content that shows up here on this big white canvas on the right side of my web browser page. So everything inside of there is what actually will show up on the page. Now there's a ton of different tags, but I'm just going to walk you guys through like a few of the big ones. So obviously I have this p tag here already. Now the p tag represents paragraph text. So if you want small text that's sort of built for paragraphs, you typically tend to use the p tag. It's P short for paragraph, because like paragraph, you want smaller text, stuff like that. But let's say that I want some really big text, like maybe say for a header. For that, we have the H1 tag. So we can have something here that says I'm really big. And if I save this and then now refresh my file, we're working in part 2 by the way now, we would see something that says I'm really big. Now, there's actually not just H1. You might be wondering what that one means. There's actually H1 through H6. So H1, H2, H3, H4, H5, and H6. And as you go down the numbers, these sizes do get slightly smaller. So like if I do H2 here, I can say I'm slightly smaller. And we will see that upon saving this, we now have text that is still much bigger than our paragraph text, but not as big as our H1 text. And this would go on down the line, so on and so forth. Now we also have a tag that I'd like to introduce that's good for grouping other things. And this is called the div tag. So the div tag itself doesn't actually show up on the screen. So right here, if I save and then refresh my page right now, nothing's going to pop up on the screen. And that's because the div tag really doesn't have any effect on the page other than to group elements together. So it's great for code organization, and it's also great for CSS, for applying CSS's properties to multiple elements. If you don't know what that means, no worries. I'll actually be covering that in a future video in this series. But essentially what you need to know is that div tags are great for targeting a large group of HTML tags and grouping them together for code cleanliness and to apply specific CSS or JavaScript function rules. Okay, so we can actually throw other tags inside of this. So again, like I mentioned before, the div tag can take multiple other tags inside of it. So I can throw again like another H2 tag here and say I'm in a div. I can throw another p tag inside of here saying I'm also in a div. And we'll actually see that, like again, like upon refreshing it, like this text looks no different than this one. It's just down below it, because that's how it comes down and out in like sequential order, you know, like there's nothing different about it. One last thing that I would like to show is actually a good example of a self-closing tag, and and it is with displaying images. So for that, pretty simple and straightforward. We do use the image tag img. And this is a self-closing tag because there's no actual like textual content inside of it. But you might be wondering, I just saved it, there's no image, like where do I actually get the image from? So you can actually pull an image from online and just copy that image's URL, or you can download one and put it in the exact place of your current working directory. So like I have my HTML file saved inside of this part 2 folder, and I also have an image that is the CodeLab logo.png file saved here as well. You can download your own image or just pull something up from the web. Either way works fine. And then you can just do src, which is short for source. So like, hey, where is this image coming from? Where should I be getting it from? And then you can just put the either URL right inside of here or just the file name, so like codelablogo.png. And now there is my Codelab logo. Now, a few things to mention about this. What is this source thing? Why did you have to use that to embed the image? Why is it not a self-closing tag? Why would this not be like some textual content? And that's because src, this isn't an exact great way to say it, but it's essentially like passing a parameter or an argument to a function. It's like saying, hey, here's my image tag, and I'm going to need the parameter or argument that says where I can go to find that image. And you can go to this file. Now, the other thing to mention is how it actually found this file. So again, my Codelab logo file is inside of this part 2 folder, so it's right here. But let's say that I had the image stored in a different file, like it was one directory up. If you guys have ever used the cd command to change directories on like a Unix CLI, that pathing system is actually exactly how you dictate an image source location. So if I were to have said like .. that would mean that we have to go one folder up, and then the computer should be able to expect to find the Codelab logo. But you'll notice that now if I refresh, that image doesn't actually exist there. So I get this little error image here. You guys might actually recognize this little image error from like a bunch of like old, like outdated web pages now. And that's how they show up if the image can't be found. So like a bad path is supplied to it. But now if I put the good path back, it can be found. So just a note that if your image is not in the same directory, you can still find it. You just have to do the pathing to get to it. It can either be in like a nested folder or like a few folders up. You just have to path back to it. You can also give the absolute path from like your home directory if you'd like as well. But generally we tend to put images close by so they're very easy to navigate to. But that is all for this video. Hopefully you all found it pretty useful, and I will catch you all in the next one. Thank you. Bye-bye.